kind of sticky tip all about you and your storytelling. So welcome. I'm Darcy from Sticky Bee. And I tell you, it's the great place to be because I help you get them sticky, get them stuck, and get them to stay like bees to honey. And today I want to talk to you about your storytelling because the facts may tell, but it is indeed the stories that sell. So if you're not telling stories, it may be why you're having some trouble with your selling. So I wanted to kind of make this a little bit fun and talk about boring stories and stories that just kind of don't seem to mesh. And I've compared them kind of like, boring is just fear wrapped in Wonderbread. And well, we grew up with Wonderbread, right? Most of us did, unless you're really young. Don't make it in the States anymore, but apparently Canada still makes Wonderbread. So I want to talk to you about your storytelling. And does it, is it like Wonderbread? Because when we take a look at Wonderbread, launched in 1921, the wonder is coming, so they said. Now, this was the first bread that ever was sliced. So in the 1921s, it was frankly the greatest thing since sliced bread. But on further inspection, if we take a look at what Wonderbread's really all about, really all about, there ain't no wonder in it. It's not wonder. It really isn't. They've taken away the fiber. They've taken away, stripped out all the good nutrients. And I remember as a kid, and maybe back in the olden days, you might have done this too, that the Wonderbread, you could really take it and just kind of dough it all up. It was pretty awful. And you could eat it, digest it, throw your blood sugar off the charts, and frankly, you were hungry in a minute. So this begs the question, how is your storytelling like Wonderbread? Well, is it boring? And Wonderbread talked about, some things that you could do with it, and it was supposed to be full of all these wonderful ingredients. But I just said they stripped them all out, but they did call it a classic white story. But classic white, white ain't right, and it's boring, and we don't want your stories to be boring because you need those stories to engage your audience. You need them to grab their attention. You need those stories to have your audience say, well, now that's kind of an interesting thing. So they've got to be compelling. And in order to make them compelling, they need to stand out. And so how do you make a standout story? Because we've got brand stories, we've got origin stories, we've got a challenge story, we've got a pivot story, a catalyst story, the changing perception stories. it goes on and on, all the different stories that you should be crafting in your content, in your marketing, in everything that you do should be a story. And the reason being is that our brains connect to stories. And in actuality, if we tell a good enough story, we can get the audience to kind of join us on the journey. So you've got to practice telling your story because no one else has your story. And that's really the only one you should be telling. So what if we kind of put together, and here, if you're going to stand in your story, you got to make sure that your nails look good. So that's a big part about selling your story and telling your story. Now, if we take a look at a story recipe, and what really is a story recipe? Well, they're the ingredients that you need to make your story compelling. Now, a classic white isn't much of a story. When you remove all the fiber and all the nutrients, there's not much of a story there either. So, and if it's boring, boring's really kind of quite a bummer. We don't want it to be boring. We don't want to strip out all the ingredients or all the details. So we don't want to wrap it in Wonderbread. Compelling stories are full of color. They're full of ingredients, but you've got to kind of know when to pull those ingredients in. So the biggest story element that you can practice taking advantage of is conflict. I mean, let's face it, everybody, conflict's dramatic. And we're all kind of voyeurs, you know. We love to see an accident. We want to pay attention to what's going on. So at the core of your story should really be about the emotions, the expectations, and the reality. So here's what I thought was going to happen. Here's what really happened. And here's the little story arc I went on. Now, what we want to do with these expectations is, you know, we don't want to dough it up. We want to give them something to chew on, something that makes the story compelling. And as I say, you don't want to dough that up like we did with Wonderbread and then just kind of, you know, get rid of it at the end. So if you're talking about your entrepreneurial journey, this is just your story. No one else has it, as I said. So you, what has your story been like? What were some of the ups and downs? What did you think was going to happen? What did you expect to happen? And frankly, what really happened? And those are two quite compelling propositions. I thought this was going to happen, but this is really, really what happened. And I think too many people step in here and they want to just tell, you know, they want to tell a rosy story. And it's not a bed of roses. What were some of the opposing forces? Forces like fear, like limited funds, like you wanted a future freedom for your family, but you got partway on this journey and realized that just may not happen. I think too many of us are forced to kind of consider that the story has to be good, or I don't have a good story until I'm successful. But the fact is, it's the struggle that makes the story successful. As I say, we're all voyeurs. You know, what's the dark side? Where's the struggle? What were the negatives? Give me that juicy, compelling, captivating conflict. You want to be kind of struggling with some of the negatives. What were the forces that kind of came upon you? And how did you overcome that? How did you engage in those times? How did it become more memorable for you? You see, a good storyteller will describe what it's like to deal with these opposing forces. Finances. Maybe your family wasn't happy about what you did. Maybe you thought you'd get there quicker and you had to find another hustle to make it happen. So a good storyteller adds all those things in. And then you've got to figure out why did you continue? What drove you? What compelled you? What was the resilience that you needed to get through the hurdles so that you could come out the other side and tell your story of resilience? You want to grab the listener and pull them into your story, because you see, the wonder of the story is in the story struggle. So too many times we don't talk about the struggle. And this isn't a poor me. You need to remember that you are not the hero of your story. Your audience is. And so you need to pull them through this journey of your story, but make it so that they want to ride that journey with you. How do you position your problems? How do you show how you're overcoming them or how you overcame them? Because what's interesting about this, as I say, is that it is the telling the story struggle that your audience is captivated. And you talk about what the light at the end of the tunnel was, and they'll want to get on the journey with you. And you see, that, my friends, is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Because when you can entice and captivate an audience, and there's a whole story arc and process that you need to go through. But in essence, these are kind of the basic ingredients to telling a story. But if you really want to learn about how to tell stories that sell, I suggest to you that you may want to put in the bottom of this video, just show me. And I'm launching a little program in the next short while that is all about stories that sell. And I have some wonderful things to share with you on that, and how you frame all of these different kinds of stories, because it's all about influencing a purchase. Ultimately, we're all here because we have something to sell. And so would you be curious enough to check it out if I could show you how to influence a purchase, how to get into your buyer's brain? I mean, those are the kinds of things that you want to talk about in terms of crafting a compelling story. And some of them are better than others, and it does take some practice. But I think you'll find this quite interesting about how you can get into your buyer's brain and influence a purchase. So put show me in the comments below, and I'll make sure you get on a waiting list when I launch this little program. So take care, folks, and remember, the facts may tell, but it's the stories that sell. I'm Darcy from Sticky Bee, and it's the place to be. Bye for now.